And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie, has here back with another episode of my supporter series. And ladies and gentlemen who have watched my series know this lovely lady very well, Miss Fiona Newton from the Chicks Talking Footy podcast. Fiona, how are you doing?
I am so well, and been really looking forward to speaking to you again, Donnie. It's we've forged Pacific a bond over the Pacific.
Yeah, and it's been fun. The chatting with footy and all of that has always been a blast. We keep tracks and we keep tabs on each other. It's so much fun. But today I'm gonna sit here and chat with you about footy a little bit. We'll eventually get into this, but when I start my conversations, I always kind of like going knowing a little bit more information. We haven't really dove into you a little bit, so just you want just a short little quick bio of who Fiona Newton is away from footy.
Away from footy, I don't have a life outside of footy, Donnie. No, that's not true. I what I do here in Melbourne, Australia, is I run a community market called the Fitzroy Market. So Fitzroy in Melbourne's a very, how do you describe it? It's it used to be a ghetto, but now it's full of creative, artistic types. And the Fitzroy football team was a big part of the central life of the community, actually. But the football club folded in 30 years ago. And yeah, so I've got a deep love for where I live, and so I do that partly, and I also work in corporate training. So I do a lot of work around productivity and help people manage their emails and manage all their tasks and projects and notes and files and all the things that we have to juggle to try and manage our lives. So I deliver a lot of training, coaching and consulting in that area as well. And then talk a lot of footy outside of all of that. So I've got my fingers in a few pies, which keeps life interesting and keeps me on my toes. And I've also got a 4-year-old son that I run after a lot too. So he keeps me fit and healthy out there.
You're literally on your toes all the time. That is great. So I love asking this question, especially considering again being an American. I wasn't born and raised with footy. Footy wasn't around my life. So, what is your favorite thing about football?
For me, and it's something I've really been missing because Melbourne's been in lockdown again for another 4 months or 3 months this year. And uh, as a result, we haven't, I think I've been to 2 men's games in 2 years and probably about 3 or 4 women's games in 2 years. So my favourite part of football is going to the ground, going to the game and connecting with people that love it, and just the energy of, a whole crowd of people getting behind, the spectacular nature of sport. And, I miss that. I miss that a lot. It's just, I love watching footy on TV, of course, but it's just not the same without catching up with everyone at the ground. And yeah, I am looking forward to having that back in my life, hopefully next year.
I really hope for your sake it really is too. So let's go hop in a time machine a little bit. Can you remember your earliest footballing memory?
Yes, I can. So I used to go to the football with my dad a lot. He was definitely the one that introduced me to the AFL. He's a Swan supporter, so he did a terrible job of converting me to his team. But one of the things that we used to do as kids was they used to have these collection points where you could take aluminium cans and get 75 cents per kilo, which when you're 9 or 10 years old is a lot of
Mhm.
money. So we used to go around and collect all the beer cans at the ground and go and cash them in so that we could get the money to pay for the game that we wanted to attend the next week. So it was very much part of our part of our experience.
Not a problem. I love it. Some of those memories, it may not be specifically about footy, but those are that's really, really good. Now, you and I have had many a conversation, so I know the answer to this, but not everybody that may be listening to this knows. Who is your club and kind of how did you come to support them?
Yeah, so I barrack for the Hawthorn Football Club, the Hawks, and it's funny. I mean, my mum barracked for Melbourne Demons and my dad barracked for the Sydney Swans. So, as I said, they did a terrible job of converting me to their teams. I'm not sure what happened there, but I remember I think it was 1983, so I was about 6 at that in that year, and Hawthorn won the grand final, and I just thought that's my team. So I barracked for the Hawks, and it was a good choice because in the 1980s, I think we won 4 premierships that that decade,
Hmm.
and we've won a few ever since. So I won't die wondering what it's like to experience a premiership.
Yeah, hey, you picked a good team and with some great players. I mean, just a laundry list of great players. So you said your family was kind of a different or supporting. Were there any other Hawks people in your family that supported, or is it just were you kind of the outcast a little bit, not in a negative way?
Yeah, at the time there wasn't. My cousin Jenny, who I'm quite close to. She barracks for the Hawks, but that she made that conversion later in life. So when she was at university, so she wasn't barracking for the Hawks when I started barracking for them. It was a purely autonomous choice of mine as a young child. So yeah, a lot of people, they just are born. And my son, he's pretty much got his Hawks membership before he was named.
Mhm.
But that wasn't it just wasn't the culture in our family for some reason. But so I picked my own team.
To each his own. I mean, I've heard some stories of you're going to be a this supporter or you're out of the house
Yeah,
type of stuff, and
yeah.
it's fun to listen to. It's a little scary to think if it actually were to come true, but hey, you know what? That's sport for you. Sometimes it makes people a little crazy. Um, to kind of stay in the past a little bit, can you remember the first Hawthorne item you ever were given or bought?
The first Hawthorn item I bought was definitely a scarf. I Yeah, but it was I don't have it, and I don't have any recollection even really what it looked like. But I remember wearing a scarf, going down to Princess Park, which was our home ground, and Waverley when I was a kid with the scarf that I was given. I wish I had have kept it. I mean, some of my friends still have their Guernseys and things they used to wear, but yeah, for me it was just a basic, probably cheap, not even AFL approved scarf. So
To each their own. For one of those, I'm a diehard fan again. Not always easy being over here in the States, but I like hearing kind of people describe their why they support or their fandom, as I call it. So could you describe to me your fandom of the Hawthorne Hawks?
the type of people that follow them, is that what you mean?
Kind of just like, are you a diehard? Are you casual? Like, do you go to every single game you possibly
Oh,
can?
me.
Like, yeah.
So I would call myself a diehard fan. I mean, footy permeates most areas of my life. I mean, I started a radio show based just to talk about AFL 1 hour a week, and a podcast as well. And a lot of my close friends, like the Chicks Talking Footy team, where we're all really close. Like, we've experienced so many significant events through football and real highs through our time of barracking together. And I would, I would spend a lot of my weekend watching the games, not even just Hawthorn, watching other games as well that I think might be a good contest. Or Friday night footy is often a tradition or something that I would do if I'm home. Definitely watch the Friday night footy as well. I just love it. I think it's one of the best games on the planet. I was watching the Soccer World Finals recently this year, and soccer's a great game, but it doesn't have the electricity that AFL has, and the speed, and that game can turn in 20 seconds, whereas soccer, it feels like it's a game of breaking the other team down a little bit. So I just love it. I think it's a really exciting game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I fell in love. I fell in love with the action, and then the pure fan support is absolutely spectacular. I'm really hoping COVID gets taken care of as much as possible, so we can see 100,000 seat MCGs very, very soon. Can you
Mm.
remember the first ever Hawks game that you attended?
Oh, it would have been at Princess Park, which is near the inner city of Melbourne, with my dad. Can't say I would have been young, like 6 or 7.
Mhm.
So I can't remember exactly the exact game in terms of what teams were playing, but I remember loving it straight away. And a lot of people my age, particularly even women, say that the way they bonded with their dad was by going to the footy together, and that was very much true of my relationship with my dad. That was our bonding experience. We go to the footy and cheer our teams on.
Yeah, that's actually fantastic, and I wish I'd see it more. And especially nowadays with the AFLW coming in, I think it's going to be even more
Mm.
fun for not only one of them watching the AFL, the men's, but the women's games as well. So I like asking this question. For me, it's kind of fun because I've heard this said as it's like picking your favorite child, which for some people is not something they like to do. Can you pick your favorite player of the past? And then do you have a favorite player currently on the Hawks list?
Definitely probably my favorite player of all time was Cyril Rioli. I think he just had a flair and way of marking the ball that was just so exciting. I absolutely loved him playing. The favorite player now
Hmm.
in our team would be, oh, that's a good question. Probably Chad Wingard. I love him off the field. He's been a great supporter of the Hawks Pride group that I
Hmm.
help coordinate as well. So yeah, I've enjoyed watching him play. I think what's been good about our team this year though is there's just lots of good players. There's not one champion player that like a Buddy Franklin that we've had on our team before, but there's just a really good spread of, Warpy's great to watch. I thought Mitch Lewis, just players that I've kind of thought are starting to stand up and be exciting players for us.
Okay, and for one of the, I know that you've had a ton of flags in the recent years, but can you think of your most memorable moment as a Hawks
Mm.
supporter?
Memorable moment. I think one of the one of the heartbreaking moments for me as a fan was when Buddy Franklin left our team and started playing for your team, Donnie, the
Hmm.
Sydney Swans. And it does feel like watching your ex be happier with someone else when he's playing for the Swans. But the memorable moment would be when we played the Sydney Swans in the 2013 grand final. So you beat us in the 2012 grand final, and then Buddy swapped teams in between. And then we beat the Sydney Swans while he was playing for you instead of us. So that felt pretty good, I have to say.
Yeah, 2014 was one of those. Was like, oh, that was a little difficult to watch at times, but I always enjoyed Buddy, but I always respected the Hawks. I loved Clarko. I always thought he did just such a
Mm.
great job coaching. So it'll be very, very interesting. We jump from there in I'm not a scab picker, but I'm going to go there. Kind of what are your thoughts on last year's Hawks team? I know it wasn't exactly the most successful season in the world, and it was kind of a roller coaster at times, but what were your thoughts on last year?
Yeah, look, obviously it was a disappointing year. We sat on 17th place, the second last place on the ladder for most of the season. So that's a pretty depressing place. And there was even a chance at one stage where we thought maybe we could be wooden spooners, which, gosh, I mean that's such a fall from grace, isn't it? But towards the end of the season, it actually became really exciting. We won, I think, 3 out of our last 4 games. Although we had 2 draws this season, which was quite amazing, to experience. But I feel like we're building something really good. We've got a lot of young guys that are, starting to stand up, and yeah, I think Sam Mitchell coming on as our coach, I have no idea how that's going to work out, but I know that he's done all the right things to position himself into that role. So yeah, I'm excited about the future, but yeah, it's been a disappointing season. There's no 2 ways about that. And I think even some of the off-field stuff that was happening, the way that Alistair Clarkson was so unceremoniously ditched from our club. That's a wound, I think, for the members of the Hawthorn Football Club that we're not going to forgive very easily. And just to watch a coach that's given us 4 premierships get treated and just dismissed the way that he was, I thought it was it was disgraceful.
Mhm.
There's
I
no other
completely
way.
I completely agree. It's hard in that situation to make that change the way it was done. I think more of the way it was done was the hardest part, because it was just like, whatever, Alistair, get out of here. And that's kind of how it really seemed. So I with your show, you talk about it all the time, but how have you been keeping an eye on the off season this year, and kind of what are your thoughts on what Hawthorn kind of did this off season?
This off season right now,
Yeah,
what they're doing or what they're
kind of how everything kind of happened, like with the fact that it sounded like there for a while that O'Meara and some of their big
yeah.
superstars were potentially being traded, and they didn't.
Mm,
Are you,
I see what
was
you
it a
mean.
little scary there for a bit?
Yeah, look, there was a couple of days where it was really scary. Like it looked like we had stars like GWS was sniffing around Chad Wingard. Gunston, there was rumours he might go to Melbourne, and then Bruce was, the Bulldogs were circling around him. We did lose two players, Tim O'Brien to the Bulldogs and Seglar to Geelong. I have to say, as a Hawthorn supporter, losing a player to Geelong is like extra painful. It's kind when they go to your arch enemy, but yeah, funny. The commentary was that the players wanted to stay at Hawthorn, even though we haven't had a successful year. It seems like the morale is still reasonably high, and the expectation of going into next year and growing as a team, it seems to be helping people stick around. So so a lot of the players stayed. Well, in fact, all of them, all of those 4 players stayed. And look, for Tim O'Brien and Segler, I think it's definitely a good career progression for both of them. They've both been at Hawthorn for a while. So yeah, huge relief that we kept some of those players.
Okay, and with the huge relief and keeping some of the superstars, do you have any expectations for no year? For some people, expectations is a buzzword a little bit, but do you have any kind of thoughts on what you think Hawthorn will be next year?
I think we'll improve. That's my feeling. It's hard to know just with Sam Mitchell what he is doing, but I have seen, I've seen some really good signs of, like, he was coaching our Box Hill Hawks, which is the seconds team, and they did really well. And I think he's developed a lot of good players like CJ. He was the one that really spotted CJ and believed in him and developed him into the player. He was an exciting player. He had touches of Rioli, just that speed and the flair that he had of getting the ball away from other players and marking them in spectacular ways and doing all that sort of thing. He reminded me of Rioli, and Sam Mitchell was the one that really developed him. And I think players like him will come up as well this year. So I'm feeling really positive. I think we've got a good young team, and when we actually play well together, we've beaten some of the top 4 teams this year. We drew with Melbourne, we beat Brisbane, so we've got it in us, and I think I'm quite positive going into next year.
And I agree with the talent you've got there, definitely a possibility. So, the next question I have is, this is a fun one for me, because maybe it's the American society in me. We all want to be general managers. We all want to be list managers. We all want to be able to make the moves. So I'm going to install you as the list manager as of right now. The other 17 clubs have open ability for you to bring in any player from any of
Oh
the other
God,
lists. Who's the first person you bring to Hawthorn?
well, probably Sydney Stack. I would love
Good one.
to. Obviously, I like players with flair, but I would love to bring him into the team just to bring that speed and the excitement. Yeah, gee, that's a good question. You've put me on the spot there, Donnie.
It's a fun one. You'd be surprised in the
Yeah.
interviews that I've heard. I've had Nick Nui, I've had Marcus Bontempelli. Trying to think of
Oh,
who
yeah.
else.
Marcus Bontempelli
There's another
definitely.
one. I've heard some. I'm interested to see how some of the others go, because once you get into teams like, who would you bring into Sydney?
Oh,
Who would you bring into Melbourne? Like,
yeah.
it'll be fun as I talk to some of the other ones. But I like
Uh,
Marcus Bontempelli. It doesn't surprise me. Christian Petracca would be a good one to bring in, especially for your midfield. Would you bring in a Max Gawn or a Nick
Yeah,
Nui
I
for
was
your
literally
ruck?
about to say, I mean, he is, after watching him in the final series this year, I mean, he is God. He was
Mm,
just the third quarter of the preliminary final. He was everywhere on the ground. You'd see him in defence, then the next thing you'd see him kicking a goal in the 50. Then he'd be in the ruck, and I mean that third quarter of what he did in the preliminary final, it will be folklore in footy circles and particularly demon circles for years to come. He is someone
completely
I would
agree.
love to have on our team, like, and just his leadership as well,
Hmm.
the way he has led that team. You know, of course, a Petrarca would be amazing as well. Look, I'd
Hmm.
pinch the demons at the moment, but the whole club, I think there's something special happening there, and I don't think that's the first premiership, the last premiership that we'll see from them.
Well, I know he's getting older, but I'm surprised you didn't want to snatch Buddy back. So,
Yeah, no, he's getting old now. Actually,
you,
I love Buddy. I love Buddy, but it's I love
yeah,
him, and that's why it hurts so much.
yeah, and I understand. But my only thing was is that you needed a superstar for the Sydney market to keep people coming in, and I think he's done that. And I know it's Hawthorn's loss, but for me as a Swan supporter, I thought it was a great move by the Swans to be able to have that marquee guy to bring in. Yeah, you had Adam Goods, but when you bring in another, not only Indigenous player, but an Indigenous player everybody knows, everybody loves, it was hard to argue that. And I know it hurts. But so we'll move on from there. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one. With the last 2 years, the grand final being outside of the Victorian border, I've heard some rumblings that people were okay with maybe the grand final being a moving grand final, but as a Victorian and a Melburnian, the grand final, it has to be in Melbourne, or would you be okay with maybe the occasional traveling grand final?
I have to agree. It was, I mean, it's certainly been an interesting experiment. I mean, no one ever would have predicted 5 years ago that the grand final would be anywhere but the MCG. And look, it's not going to happen because the MCG has a contract till 2058 or something ridiculous. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I mean, Western Australia, they did such a great job with the whole spectacle of the game, and so did the Gabba. I mean, they did their program entertainment was interesting, but the but you know they both cities managed to put on a great event, which I think drew local fans. You know, lit up their cities with the grand final. Um, I can see that as a valid point. You know, even Adelaide Oval and places like that, but it's just not going to happen, unfortunately, for other states. But I do, I mean, one criticism of footy is that it's very Victoria centric, and it is because it was the VFL for 100 years
Mm-hmm.
before it became the AFL, and it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't want to
It,
see it travel around, but I have to admit it was hard not to be enticed by that idea.
mm-hmm. And it's, and I would almost say, is it could it be a traveling one like every 4 years, almost like the Olympics, like every fourth or fifth year. And I know this is pie in the sky stuff. I mean, this is going to be in 50, 55 years before this eventually happens. But it was interesting to hear the discussion even from Victorian media. The people were like, I didn't mind it being in Perth and Gabba. Would it be possible? And like I said, the MCC, there's no way they're going to get out of that contract. That's ironclad there, but it's an interesting thing to discuss a little bit. I know it's pie in the sky. This next topic for me, you and I have had many a conversation about this, and I'm super excited about the latest announcement. AFLW again. You and I have talked AFLW. We've done review shows. How excited are you that both the Hawks and the Swans will be joining in a year? And since we both watch it, how happy were you of how well the season turned out last year after coming back from kind of a lackluster end after COVID shortened the season before?
Yeah, look, the AFLW season, it was fantastic that we got a premiere out of the season after what happened last year. The VFL season, though, there was no grand final played, so they had the same experience. The women had the same experience with the state-run league. But look, I was wrapped, and I actually managed to get to a few football games because the Melbourne wasn't locked down during that time. And for the first ever season, we had a full Pride round. So every team and every game was celebrating LGBTI Pride. We had a full Indigenous round as well. So every team was celebrating our Indigenous community. So there was a lot of significant things. I think in a lot of ways, the women are ruling leading the way in some of these aspects. But it's been painful, Donnie, watching, I think,
Mhm.
4 or 5 seasons of women's
Five.
footy. 5, yeah, gosh.
This will be
And
six.
yeah, this will be 6. And I love women's footy, and I was never one of those people that could get behind another team. I actually
Mhm.
follow it, and I don't judge people that did, because when you're left without one, it's
Mhm.
definitely a choice. But it's been painful not having my own team, and also watching the VFLW team that we have every season. We'd have 7 or 8 players that get recruited into the AFLW, and you're like, why do we have to develop these players and then give them off to other teams? Why can't we be developing players for ourselves? And then Patrick Smith left Hawthorn a couple of years ago, to go join the Saints, and I was devastated when that happened, because he is an excellent coach. But we now have Beck Goddard, and she's the only woman that is a senior coach in the AFLW. And we also have an all-female coaching staff for the AFLW. So I think Hawthorn are leading the way when it comes to that. And I'm really excited to see what happens, because I actually think some of those players will start migrating back to
That'd
Hawthorn.
be great. In fact, I'll tell you this. I'm not sure if you know this. I signed up to be a foundation member for the Swans. They already have the
Ah,
signups,
awesome.
and I actually had the pleasure of being part of a Twitter montage after it was announced that they were letting people sign up for the foundation members. I signed up and I made the specifics. I'm a US member, but I want to be a foundation member. And they put it in the montage, the little montage of all the tweets of people so excited
Ah,
for it. So I had to print screen it and let people know. And I always got a kick out of it. So I'm super, super excited for it. Not this year, but next year when the
I know.
Swans
We've still got
are
to wait another
joining.
sort of
I know
13
this.
months or 14 months. Yeah.
Yes, this
But
season will be tough, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun because I know that next year we have that pleasure of all 18 teams being in the AFLW. So
yeah, yes, exactly. And look, I think now knowing that it's there, it's not going to be as painful, I think, as it
mhm,
as it has been. But
there's
yeah,
light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah, that's right. And amazing. It's amazing that the whole league is complete too. It's not. I was really excited, obviously, for my team joining, but also just that we now have a women's league that is completely mirrors the men's league, and what that will mean
Mhm.
in terms of development of women's sport in the AFL.
Completely agree. And the best part is more young ladies are playing it. I think that the standard of footy is only going to get better. Trust me, keep an eye on this. So the last few questions, there's some fun ones here. When you go to the footy, what's your favorite food that you like to eat when you're at the footy?
I always get the hot dog. It's my traditional lunch or dinner. I'm at the footy. I go straight for the dodgy, overpriced hot dog at whatever ground I'm at. And we can
To
give reviews, because there was one over we went to, Whitten Oval, and they toasted the bun.
I remember that episode. That
Yeah,
was
we
pretty
talked
funny.
that
You guys
that
talked
took a
about that for a good 20 minutes. It was
they took,
hilarious.
it took up a couple of segments on our show. It was outrageous, Donnie. You have to have a soft bun for the hot dog.
To each their own. Hey, everybody's different. It's like a meat pie. Some people like some people like tomato sauce, some people don't. Some people
Oh
like
God.
to add different things to it. It's a little bit different. So, but I interesting to hear just some of the different things. Like I think with American sports, we're all known for you go there and you eat and all that stuff, and there's just so many different things. So I wanted to hear what your go-to thing is for the food at the footy. Um, I haven't had the chance to go to a game live in Australia, but I'm planning on doing it hopefully very soon. But when you
Donnie,
go,
Donnie, we've had an announcement today that you can come over to Australia fully
I
vaccinated
I
without
heard
quarantine.
I heard that I'm not sure I'm at that financially stable point right
Yeah.
there, but I'm hopefully very soon. But
Well, I'm coming over to watch you play, Donnie.
well, hey, I, I hope so very soon. Unfortunately, our USAFL season is just completed this last weekend
Uh,
with the Nationals. But we'll stay on chatting with you here. When you go to a game live, do you have an ideal place that you like to sit? Is it behind the goals? Is it midfield? Is it in the wing? Like, where's your ideal place to sit when you go see a game live?
I think the second level on the wing is, but I actually have a membership seat for our home game. So you buy your membership and
Mm-hmm.
you then have a seat that's allocated to you for the season. So that seat is kind of just to the left-hand side of the goals, but it's a bit annoying when the game's being played at the other end because then you have to
Mm-hmm.
watch the screen while you're at the ground. But it's also exciting when your players are kind of 15 meters from where you're sitting and you can see what they're doing. But yeah, I think the wing's definitely the best place for being able to watch the whole game. The game as a whole.
Yeah, I really want to get in one of the second levels, either midfield or behind the goals, just so I can watch the movement. Maybe it's the coach in me a little bit that wants to be able to see the movement of players. Like I almost wish I could record it just because I think it'd be fascinating to have on there. With a couple of questions left with this next one, with this channel being based in America and having NFL and different things like that, we occasionally get the uh, stray American fan that hops on and watch these. So if an American fan sits there and watch this, can you give us a really quick pitch on why an American fan should be a Hawthorn Hawks supporter?
A Hawthorn Hawk supporter. Uh, I mean, the Hawks have such a great legacy of developing great players. We've won the most premierships in my lifetime, so we have a definite winning culture. One of the great things about the Hawks too is the way we mentor and develop coaches. I mean, five of the other coaches in other teams were assistant coaches at Hawthorn. So we have just that really strong leadership um, development. I think also it's just a family club. We're a very close knit group of people that love following the Hawks. And our home ground is the MCG. So if you become a member, you get to have your seat at the MCG every single week.
Hard to argue. That is not that's not very tantalizing there. So, and the last question I ask, and this is more just I like hearing the different answers. What is the favorite game of footy you have ever seen, whether it was on TV or whether it was live? Favorite game of footy you have ever seen?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard one. Um, I think when you say that, I think of grand finals as the games that I've seen that have been really exciting. Can I say my favorite Hawks game?
Hey, I
Okay,
said
so
favorite game, whatever you've seen, it's your call,
there,
whether it's Hawks, whether it's anything.
there's a preliminary final that for me uh, broke something almost spiritually over our club, which we we won the 2008 grand final against the Geelong Cats, and from then on we lost every game that we played against them in the home and away season. And there was a preliminary final where at three-quarter time we were 20 points down, and the thought of losing to Geelong in a preliminary final after this massive losing streak was just absolutely horrifying. And there was such a rivalry between the two clubs. And Sean Burgoyne, he just came out of nowhere and kicked a miraculous goal, and it just turned the momentum of the game. And then we beat them, and we got into our first grand final from there. And from that point, well, I think it was actually our second grand final, but from that point, we won our 3 premierships. So you've got to think, gee, if we didn't win that quarter, the whole of our fate might have been different. And it was just such an exciting game to be at and win. It felt so bloody good.
That's amazing. Like I said, I've heard all sorts of games. Sometimes they pick their game from their team. Sometimes they pick a different one. So it's always a fun one to hear. Kind of what's your favorite game? It's always a fun one to chat. Well, that is it for me, Fee. This has been just an awesome chat. You and I love chatting footy. It's been so
Mm.
much fun meeting you online, and I think it's been such a great friendship. And I love listening to the Chicks Talking Footy podcast. It's always so much fun. You ladies crack me up all the time, but I love the discussions. Like the discussions are really, really in depth, and I love that. So just please do me a favor, let the chicks know I'm thoroughly enjoying the episodes. Even if I'm the only one listening to the podcast, I'm listening with enjoyment. I really, really appreciate what you guys are doing. The inclusivity, the getting all of the messaging out there, I think is absolutely awesome. Like I told Mikey when I discussed with him over the Saints, I said that the pride game is something I really, really take pride in, that my club is part of that. So, and you and I have had discussions about that I want to be an ally for the community and all that. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work. I will continue listening. And if you guys ever need me to hop on live, you guys just let me know.
Yeah, thanks so much, Johnny. And we've had you on the show, I think, once as well. So
Mhm.
we really appreciate the friendship, and that there's so great to know that our game's being followed over in America and other countries in the world as well, because we think it's the best game in the world.
Yeah. So like I said, the invitation now that we can travel back and forth, the invitation for next October in the Nationals is free to come on over. You can see footy for 2 straight days. It's absolutely a blast. So, and then the best part is that little quick preview for those listening is a couple of the other chicks have agreed to be part of this series as well.
Awesome.
That is coming up soon. I know my first ever Gold Coast interview with Sasha. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Oh,
And
great.
the amazing and Beckdahl has agreed to be the Adelaide chat, which I'm looking forward to chatting
Oh
with
my
her.
God, you finally get to speak to your favorite Beck Bowell.
She is a spitfire. I cannot wait to chat with her. She's absolutely hilarious. I cannot wait. So that will
Yeah,
be a
she's
lot of fun. So, well, it is getting late for you, Fee. I will let you get to bed. I've got a long day here set for me myself. So I will let you have a good night again. Thank you again so much for hopping on.
no worries. Thanks so much, Donnie. I love you.
We'll
Love
talk to
what
you
you do.
later. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I try my best. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fan supporter series. We'll be back again very soon.